Greetings, brethren, and believers in the present truth shepherd's rod message, and welcome to our presentation today, where we will investigate the Confederacy of Isaiah chapter 8, and ask the question, is it more than military service? We will respond using the Holy Bible and the Spirit of Prophecy and the shepherd's rod. Before we begin, let us consider this text for meditation. Teach not short or beyond what is published. This reads, if Christians never accuse one another, never communicate one another's mistakes, shortcomings, failures, and troubles, they will find themselves so united that nothing can break their common Christian bond. But such a spirit of oneness can be maintained only by a people who keep a tireless vigil over themselves, always to see eye to eye and to speak the same things by forsaking their own ways and the thoughts in exchange for the Lord's. It is imperative, therefore, that every present truth believer teach and practice only present truth. Teach not short of, nor beyond what is published. Weave not into it private interpretations or constructions, theories, and ideas, and do nothing less or nothing more than what the message calls for. Answer book number 4, page 68. Well, unfortunately, if Davidians followed this counsel today, we would see eye to eye, but we don't. It's very clear that there's all these winds of doctrine and division and factions among us because we're not following this counsel. There are amongst us those that teach short of or beyond this message. So we want to examine a case of this in regard to the Confederacy found in Isaiah chapter 8. And heed this Bible counsel, that we henceforth be no more children tossed to and fro, carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of men, and cunning craftiness whereby they lie in wait to deceive. Ephesians 4, verse 14. So bear this scripture in mind as we look at the evidence about what is being taught amongst us as a people regarding the Confederacy in Isaiah chapter 8. The source of this controversy is an article that was published on this website, Hear Ye the Rod, on June 9th, 2018, where the waters of truth were muddied. The author of this presentation, called Unmasking the Confederacy Issue, took up the first part, warning about the dangers of the Confederacy as taught in the new codes published by Florence Houteff. And to this we can agree. However, their main priority or objective was to attack the position or the idea that the Confederacy involves the incorporation of God's associations of Mountaindale and Waco with the government as 501c3. They wanted to attack and reject that. So we want to expose the deception of this and examine these patently false charges. And we're going to read from this article. Another belief, and not so well followed or proclaimed except by one website, it's actually two websites, Shepherd's Rod Speaks-org and yparish.org, is the idea that this Isaiah Confederacy is about our SDA church and DSDA organizations getting a 501c3 incorporation with the state. There's only one problem with this. The Rod does not say anything about a connection of the Confederacy in Isaiah 8, 9-15 to church incorporation. Well, no wonder, because this was not an issue in Brother Houteff's day. The 501c3 didn't even come into law until late 1954, and churches did not start incorporating until after Brother Houteff died. So we have to examine it using principles found in all of the Golden Bull. So that's misleading charge number 1. In the next paragraph, the following references are the only ones from the original Shepherd's Rod that deals with the Confederacy of Isaiah 8. 2TG 41, 14 track, and military stand. Well, this is not true, and we'll show an example of this. But, based on these three references, they conclude, or they state, that this constitute our true counsel in this matter. To add to it by saying that the 501c3 is the Confederacy we are warned against in Isaiah 8 is to certainly add a private interpretation to inspiration. So now they make a blanket false charge without any proof to dismiss all of the evidence that's been put forward on the yparish.org website to show indeed how 501c3 is a confederacy God's people are not to be part of. And we're going to look at that a little bit more in detail. So this author comes to the following deceptive and misleading conclusion. He summarizes that we, quote, as SDA and DSDA should not be involved in military service where we join up with other nations, i.e. NATO. This is indeed the time we say ye not a confederacy to all them to whom this people shall say a confederacy. Neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. So they teach short of the Golden Bowl by coming to a conclusion that the confederacy in Isaiah 8 is only involving military service. Is this true? Well, brethren, let's step back and look at the issue a little more carefully and not be fooled by this cunning sleight of hand. We need to recognize that the Golden Bowl is more than the shepherd's rod alone, or just a few references from the shepherd's rod. Let's read this from track 11, page 12. All present truth believers should now see the necessity of shunning every wind of doctrine, regardless how plausible or reasonable it might appear to be. Remember the words, behold, those that go towards the north country have quieted my spirit in the north country. See page 27 of track number 2. Get your doctrine, brother, sister, only from the Golden Bowl, and be not like the waves of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. Be not carried about by the many winds of doctrine that are blowing wildly from every direction to cause you to lose your way to the everlasting kingdom. So we're told here very plainly to get our doctrine from the Golden Bowl. This includes not only the writings of the shepherd's rod and everything in the shepherd's rod, but also the writings of Ellen White, the Spirit of Prophecy. And that's all that we'll endeavor to do, to see that this confederacy involves more than just military service. So by going to the Golden Bowl, the original artwork shows in this inspired picture and throughout the shepherd's rod that only 6 of the tubes, the ministers, are getting oil out of the bowl. And Brother Haddoff showed this for a good reason. And there's a lot of controversy and dispute over how do we understand this. And there are videos and presentations on this that you can look up in the links in the description box below as a background. But this is a textbook case here of why Brother Haddoff showed the Golden Bowl the way he did. Some people are not getting their doctrines from the Golden Bowl, or they're teaching short of or adding to what's published. What we find here is a case of blinded teachers that pick and choose from inspiration. Let's read this statement from Volume 1 of the Testimonies, page 234. We believe the visions, but Sister White, in writing them, put in her own words, and we will believe that portion which we think is of God and will not heed the other. This course they have pursued and have not corrected their lives. They have professed to believe the visions, but have acted contrary to them. Their example and influence have raised doubts in the minds of others. It would have been better for the cause of present truth had they both opposed the gifts. Then the people will not have been deceived and would not have stumbled over these blind teachers. So we have an example here of a teacher picking and choosing from the Golden Bowl to support and defend apostate associations that are incorporated with the state, specifically Mountaindale and Waco. And that's the true motive here. So they're picking the portions that suit them and then not heeding the others. What they don't want you to do, what the enemy doesn't want you to do, is to read this document, published at yparish.org, entitled My Kingdom's Not of This World, asking the question, should God's storehouse or storehouses be incorporated with the state? And is this a problem with Isaiah chapter 8, about say ye not a confederacy? And this study very carefully documents throughout the entire Golden Bowl why God's storehouse or church should not be confederated with the state. So if you have not read this, you really need to investigate and hear both sides of the story before deciding for or against. So please visit the website, type in the keyword 501c3 in the search box, and you'll link you to the post and the article that you can download, or you can request a copy at the email that will be provided at the end of this presentation. So therein is shown that confederation with the world involves several things. For example, trade unions, Country Living, page 12. Healthcare institutions. This also found in Shepherd's Rod, volume 2, page 179 and 180. Business partnerships or alliances with unbelievers. Here's a reference: Historical Sketches of Foreign Missions of SDAs, page 215. Gospel Workers, page 292. Confederation involves political alliances. Fundamentals of Education, 476. It involves marriage, evangelism, page 617. It involves confederating with those who make void the law of God, 2SM 371, TM 463, Councils and Stewardship, page 218 and 219, as well as military combatancy. And these references: Military Stand, Answer Book number 5, 7 Symbolic Code, 6, 7 to 12. So yes, the Confederacy involves military combatancy, but in addition it involves these other topics as well, and it's all found in the Golden Bowl. So in order to understand whether God's church should be incorporated with the state for financial benefit as 501c3, we need to examine the principles laid out by Ellen White and Victor Houteff, because they didn't face this direct issue because it came after their lifetime. But we apply principles that we gather from their counsels. So that's what we're going to do here. So let's look at this one, the health work bound by Confederacy. And Brother Houteff mentions this in 2 Shepherd's Rod, volume 2, page 180. It reads, "The idea of health reform is a thing of the past, so far as the church as a body is concerned, and the leadership cares little. But that is not the worst. This unfaithful servant of God has even dared stretch his hand over the gulf to form an unlawful alliance of the denominational medical institutions with those of the world who are bitterly opposed to the idea of health reform. Right hand and arm of the third angel's message. The very channel which was instituted to uphold and carry that part of the work is being bound by a confederacy, and now in order to maintain this alliance it has been compelled to sacrifice the very principle for which it was organized." So here's another reference from the Rod showing us that the health work is being confederated with the world. Now, anybody that takes the time to sit back and investigate the history of the rise of the health reform movement in the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Ellen White's day, and then after her death, how the work began to compromise and form confederacies with the institutions of the world and compromise the right hand of the third angel's message, just needs to study how in the 1920s that prescription drugs were brought into the message. It was actually the 1940s in Loma Linda. There's a whole historical study and document on this. And then later in the 1970s, the Seventh-day Adventist Church compromised in a huge way and adopted a policy of elective abortions, or the murder of babies, in Seventh-day Adventist hospitals. There's a YouTube channel by Michelle Andrew that thoroughly and carefully documents this abomination, this apostasy, proving that the church health institutions have compromised by confederating and appeasing the world. In the case of drugs, in the case of abortions, and other principles. They now serve coffee and meat and so forth. So the whole idea of Confederacy is much broader in scope in its principles than just simply military service. We're told in Spirit of Prophecy to have no union with worldly parties. Consider these references. Gospel Workers 392. The word fellowship means participation, partnership. God employs the strongest figures to show that there should be no union between worldly parties and those who are seeking the righteousness of Christ. No union means all of the things that are identified when Ellen White comments on Isaiah chapter 8. She has a lot to say about it as well. Or look at this reference in Testimonies, volume 9, page 233. God has given us plain directions regarding our work. We are to proclaim the truth in regard to the Sabbath of the Lord, to make up the breach that has been made in his law. We're to do all that we can to enlighten those in ignorance, but we are never to confederate with men of the world in order to receive financial assistance. This is exactly what's happening when churches or Davidian associations incorporate with the state that they're located in order to get 501c3 benefits. It's a financial benefit so that they can tell their donors that they can write off their donations on their tax returns. That's the sole motivating purpose. There's no law requiring this. And we prove that case. It's been proven by others. Just study the history, study the law behind the 501c3, and then compare it with the spirit of prophecy. It's plain as day. So do you want to be a good fish or a bad fish? Well, to not be a bad fish, we're counseled here in Timely Greetings, Volume 1, number 21, page 12, the following. The bad fish represent those who, with no real knowledge, conviction, or conversion of their own, but through emotion and influence of others, join the church, and will include certain Davidian associations that are in rank apostasy. So it is that those who never studiously, wholeheartedly, and zealously take hold of the principles of Christ are cast out, there to perish with the tares. All who are too lazy to study and who give the devil a chance to sow devilish seed in their hearts, making them believe that the preacher or the minister will take them through the pearly gates, having no experience of their own, are cheated of eternal life, and instead they get eternal death. Brethren, this is a very serious warning. This is not a joke. If you don't study this Confederacy for yourself and have your own conviction, but rather rely on the arm of this Bible teacher or the ministers at Mount Dale or Waco to deceive you, then you risk losing eternal life. So you must investigate for yourself. So our conclusions. The Confederacy spoken of in Isaiah chapter 8 consists of much more than just military service. The author of the Hear Ye Rod website is deceiving you into thinking that it only involves military service when it's much more. And there's a reason. The Spirit of Prophecy has much to say about confederating with the world in various capacities. Search Ellen White comments on Isaiah chapter 8 along with the topical index on your DVD or your folio using the keywords Confederacy and Alliances. You'll have plenty to convince you of the principles of which God's work is not to be confederated, which includes the more recent phenomena of state incorporation to be 501c3, which arose once again starting in 1954, after Brother Houteff was off the scene. So why are these people doing this? Why is Mount Dale they're under the gun here, and they're trying to deceive their people, and they're using this man on Hear Ye Rod to mislead the people. Because those who teach short of the Golden Bowl are so doing in order to defend the interests of the apostate Mount Dale and Waco associations, which are in fact confederated with the world in the form of IRS 501c3 religious incorporations for financial benefits, so their donors can write it off on their tax returns. That is the reason they're trying to divert you and keep you from investigating everything that's found in the Golden Bowl. Lord have mercy. So what should we do? Separate from those who promote error and refuse correction, lest you be found wanting, and study to show yourself approved unto God, rightly dividing the word of truth. So this ends our presentation. Thank you for your time. If you have any further questions, comments on this subject, please subscribe to this YouTube channel for future updates on this topic and other topics related to the advance of the original Shepherd's Rod message. Or request a copy of our presentation about the dangers of being incorporated with the state as 501c3 for your own study investigation. If you haven't looked in it to yourself, please investigate and find out where we show you exactly what's in the Golden Bowl and prove it for yourself. Despise not prophesying. Prove all things. Hold fast to that which is good. Get your doctrine, brother, sister, from the Golden Bowl. And for information how to establish your own storehouse and separate from these apostate incorporated associations, please feel free to contact us. We'll help you out anytime. Email upa5453@gmail.com, or call us 860-798-3672, or visit our website, yparish.org. Thank you once again for your time. May God richly bless you as you search for truth as for hidden treasure, and cease ye from man whose breath is in his nostrils. Godspeed.